Hi, I'm Katie Kahn, and I'm here to show you how to make your own striped fur jacket. We'll start with Simplicity Pattern 8741, a basic jacket pattern. It says, easy to sew. Well, not for long. I like to put my own twist on things. That's one of the reasons I started sewing. We're going to add some style lines to this pattern to make it more unique and fun. Let's use view C. It has a lot of ease that's perfect for fur. Use the measurement guide on the back of the pattern to select your size. I'm going with the extra small. First, I like to trace the pattern onto more substantial paper. This way the pattern will be easier to work with once we start cutting it into smaller pieces, and the original will remain intact so I can use it again. I'm using this dotted paper because I can see through it enough to trace the pattern. I'm lining up the dotted paper to the grain line and tracing the lines and pattern markings. And keep tracing. Trace, trace, trace. Here I'm marking the entire grain line of the sleeve. I find it easier to line up on the fabric grain when it's the whole length of the pattern piece. Okay, now our simple pattern is traced, front, back, and sleeve, and it has 5/8 seam allowance, which I have a personal grievance with, so I'm trimming it all down to a more sane seam allowance of 1/2 inch. So I'm just trimming 1/8 of an inch off all edges except the sleeve hem and body hem. The center back is on a fold, so don't trim anything there either. My table is covered in a cutting mat, so I'm using an X-Acto knife to cut out the pattern pieces. Cut, cut, cut. Now that the pieces are cut, we'll do the last little bit of markings on them. I'm going to notch them and drill the holes. These are two wonderful tools that I'll go over in a separate video that's all about my favorite tools and where to get them. Now we want to cut and sew a fit sample. This is a super simple, throw it together thing just to see how it fits and mark out our style lines. I'm using some muslin that I used to drape a pattern a few years ago, so please excuse the weird marks all over it. Lay out your pattern pieces, making sure they're straight along the grain of the fabric. I'm placing them upside down so they don't roll up while I'm cutting, and I have the muslin folded in half so I only have to cut once. You may notice that I roll the rotary cutter back and forth as I cut sometimes. That's because the fabric tends to bubble up in front of the blade, so I back up slightly to let the fabric relax again. I'm also using a friction pin to mark the drill holes on both layers of fabric. See how it's erasable? It disappears with heat, for example, from your iron. I've been using these for years and they still make me so happy every time. Okay, cool, now we can almost start sewing. Pin the sleeve inseams together with the drill hole marks on the outside. Then make sure you've pinned them so that you will have a left and right sleeve when they're sewn. One of my biggest beginner mistakes was sewing two of the same sleeve. Now lay the back piece down and put the front pieces on top. Pin the sides and shoulder seams. I like to sew the shoulders starting at the neck, so I pin them with that in mind. Think about what side will be fed into the machine, so your pins are on top of what you're sewing. Here I can see the back shoulder is slightly larger than the front. That's okay, I'm going to meet the edges at the stitch line and ease that little bit into the front. Now hop on your machine and start stitching! Don't forget to back tack at the start and end of your seams. Also, try not to sew over pins. It's not a big deal, but sometimes the needle will catch the pin and scratch it, and then it catches on your fabrics, and then you have to throw that pin out, and it's a whole stupid thing. Okay, sleeves, shoulders, and side seams are sewn. Now let's press the seams open so they look nice. This is a sleeve board. I'm using it so I don't press a crease in the middle of my sleeve while I'm pressing the seam. You could also use a dish towel rolled up like a sausage. Now the fun part! Pinning the sleeves in the armhole or armscye. We want the body of the jacket to be inside out and the sleeves to be right side out. So flip the sleeves right side up. Then check the notches on the sleeves. 2 notches always indicates a back piece, so I can see which side to put the sleeve in. There's almost no ease in the sleeve cap, so I'm not going to do an easing stitch. I'm going to match the underarm seams, match the notches, and match the drill holes. The center drill hole on the sleeve cap marks where the shoulder seam goes, and I'm going to pin a few more places to ease the cap into the armscye. Notice I'm pinning on the body side, not the sleeve side. The feed dogs on your sewing machine are going to slightly ease the bottom fabric into the top fabric automatically. It's their nature. So they're doing the hard work for me, making sure the sleeve goes into the slightly smaller armscye of the body. I'm feeling the fabric as I sew to feel for folds in the fabric underneath. See how I reach inside the jacket and smooth the wrinkles? Check the seam after it's sewn for any creases. If it's a small crease, you can probably ease it in with your fingernail. If the crease is stitched in place, you'll have to undo a couple stitches and re-sew that little part of the seam. Now let's do some quick finishing just to make fitting easier. Sew along the neckline at a 1/2 inch. Sorry my camera didn't focus, but I'm snipping along the curved edge so I can fold it back for a clean-ish neckline. Now fold that under and top stitch so you can see where the neckline sits in the fitting. Needs more snips. Okay, now fold over a 1/2 inch at the center front and stitch it back. Now we can press the center front edges and neckline to clean them up, and then it'll be ready to try on. We'll do that in the next video.